All right, good afternoon, emerging women leaders and guests. Welcome to our EWL programming meeting. Thank you for taking time out of your day to tune in and connect. My name is Maggie Beckley, and I have the honor of serving as one of your 4 EWL leadership co-chairs, along with Britt Bretwelder, Andrea Hugg, and Isioma Wabuzer. In a few minutes, we will hear from Peggy Williams-Smith, President and CEO of Visit Milwaukee. Very quickly though, we want to take this opportunity to share some tempo and EWL highlights to help you feel engaged and up to date during these crazy times. We know nothing can replace the feeling of networking in a room with our amazing community. EWL and Tempo leadership are working very hard to provide different opportunities for us to connect and stay informed, such as at last week's annual meeting. I personally thought the annual meeting was informative and it gave insight into the state of the organization. I feel very proud to be a part of this. I still felt the connection virtually. It was also an exciting time to celebrate the 6 EWL members that are transitioning to Tempo. Congrats again, ladies. Be sure to watch the recorded webinar if you were unable to make it. There is so much power in our network of 200 plus EWL members and 425 Tempo members right now. So here are 3 things we recommend right now to make the most of it. So number 1, if you aren't a member of the private EWL Facebook group, please join. It is so amazing to see the organic conversations, wellness check-ins, sharing, vulnerability, and general support going on in the group. Our Facebook group alone defines the power of EWL. And if you are a member and haven't contributed to the conversation yet, we encourage you to do so and recognize that it is a safe space. Number 2, the Monday message has always been our guide to all things EWL and Tempo, but you may have noticed it looks a little different in the past month. The Monday message is now also a one-stop shop for businesses, resources, community support links, the latest info on COVID-19, and more, all sourced from our Tempo and EWL members. If you have a resource that should be listed, please don't hesitate. Send it to Kelsey at the Tempo office. And number 3, we hope you have had a chance to attend the new Tempo Talks, COVID-19 weekly webinar series. It's every Friday at 3 p.m. A Tempo expert or a panel of Tempo experts highlight a relevant topic related to leadership, self-care, resources, healthcare updates, and so much more. Tempo plans to continue this program through the summer and possibly even beyond. So please join us by registering at tempomilwaukee.org. Now we realize that the pandemic is affecting everyone differently. Personally, I work for Advocate Aurora Health and have insight into the front lines. To be honest, some days this work can feel very heavy and quite overwhelming. But you know what? It also brings me some overwhelming peace to know that there are people working day and night that are heroes in this community working to keep us safe and healthy. And just know that your work at this time is also equally as important. So know that however you are feeling right now, that it's okay. And also know that your EWL family is here for you. So don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything, absolutely anything. With that, I thank you for your time and I will turn it over to today's moderator of our program. You may recognize the Tempo Director of Membership, Marit Harms-Franti.
Am I on? I am just going to start out saying I'm a little flustered because my husband decided to make a smoothie right now. So sorry if you hear him in the background. Thank you, Maggie. We'll turn your video off. So Maggie's right. We are all working so hard to make sure Tempo is still a value to our members and our EWL family right now. And if there's anything you need, any way that our network of 600 women can support you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Before I get started and introduce Peggy, I want to preview one of our program committee members, Caitlin Vaughn. If you want to turn on your video really quick and wave, Caitlin. So Caitlin is going to be moderating the chat in the Q&A box. So if throughout this you have questions, thoughts, anything that's on your mind, just type it in the chat or Q&A, and we'll tune in with Caitlin to see what everyone is wondering. Now, we want to welcome our speaker today, Peggy Williams-Smith. Peggy really needs no introduction. She has certainly been in the news a lot lately. For one, Peggy is a Tempo member, a past president. She's been with our organization since 2006, and she recently took a new role as the president and CEO of Visit Milwaukee after 20 years with Marcus Hotels. So welcome, Peggy. Thank you for taking the time out. We know you are very, very busy right now. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to connect with all of you.
And thank you for making me shower and do my hair and put makeup today. We were emailing earlier that you did the same. So
I did. So thank you for forcing me to get up and actually put some clothes on today.
So before we jump into what I know everyone is thinking about, the DNC, I want to start out on a positive note with, is there a mantra or some quote that is keeping you positive right now through all of this?
I wish there was. I think that what keeps me positive is seeing all the good that's being done in our community. And every day I make sure that I go to our page, which is Good Things Brewing. We have a Good Things Brewing page, to know that everyone in this community is working together to try to make the best out of a pretty terrible situation. So that's what keeps me positive.
Yeah, I think that's great that you guys quickly pivoted. I know everyone's saying that word right now. And
anyone who's on the call, when you say pivot, everyone on the call, if you're at home, take a drink.
Yes. Unfortunately, this is water, but agreed. It's definitely a term that's being used a lot. So before we get into your new role as CEO of Visit Milwaukee, talk to us a little bit about your background in hospitality. You have been in it basically your whole career, graduated after college. So talk to us about how you got into hospitality originally and why.
Well, I actually started in hospitality at 15 years old. So I started by working at Arby's when I was 15. And then I worked my way through college waitressing and bartending. But when I started with Muskego Lakes in 1990, and I worked there through 1997, gradually becoming their banquet manager, and it was a family-owned country club. At that point, I was in my early 20s and had decided that I didn't want to work nights and weekends, so I was going to find a job outside of the industry. I left and went to work for a construction company for 3 months. I was absolutely miserable. I took 2 part-time jobs, bartending and waitressing, so that I could still be social. And I got a call from a headhunter to come interview at the Hilton Milwaukee City Center at the time. It was 1997. So I started with Marcus. I interviewed in August. By November, I had started with Marcus, and I spent the next 22 years of my career working with Marcus Hotels and Resorts.
And what is it about hospitality that makes you passionate, that kept you in it for so long, that keeps you in it, because you still are in the business of hospitality?
Well, I think that hospitality is, you have to have a heart for hospitality. I am an extremely extroverted person. I love to be around people. I love to make people happy. I spent the first portion of my adult career doing weddings. So I got to help people celebrate the most important day of their life, sometimes twice. But it was something that even though it wasn't brain surgery and I wasn't saving lives, I knew that I was making an impact in what I was doing. And that's what really drew me to hospitality. Then after coming to work downtown and getting to know the staff and the jobs that it created, it's an amazing feeling when you walk in, or not so amazing feeling when you walk into a ballroom and you see a server who says to you, hey, why don't we have any weddings this weekend? Didn't you do your job? Now I'm not going to have enough money for my rent, or, you know, to go out with my friends, or whatever it was, wherever they were in their specific career. So I really took it to heart that my job was to create opportunities for people to make money and to create and to make a living. And to this day, that's also how I look at my job. Now it's just on a bigger scale. Instead of one hotel, the things that we bring into the city provide the opportunity for people to have family sustaining jobs.
It is such a big part of Milwaukee, and I know we're realizing just how much hospitality touches right now. So talk to us about being at Marcus for 20 years. I mean, I've known you for the past 5-6 years. You are the epitome of Marcus hotels to me. What was it like to switch over to nonprofit, to a new role? How did you make that decision?
Well, it wasn't a decision I took very lightly, that's for sure. You know, I love Marcus Hotels and Resorts. I love everything about the company and the people there. They were my family. My husband still works there. He's the general manager at the Pfister. You know, I grew up with Greg as I was going through my career progression with Marcus. Greg Marcus, the CEO, was also going through his. And it was not a decision that I took lightly whatsoever. But I also knew that after 22 years, I needed to get out of my comfort zone. I needed to do something that was different, that was going to challenge me in new ways. And this opportunity came up, and it wasn't as though I was out there actively looking for a new job. I knew if I took something new, it would never be for another hotel company, another hospitality company. That just wasn't what I was doing. But this opportunity came about, and I love the city of Milwaukee. I was born and raised here. I grew up here. I'm involved in the community. I know everything it has to offer. I've always felt as though we are, as I've been told by the people here at Visit after I started, we're all about the humble brag. We never go out and say how great Milwaukee is out loud. And I thought that if I took this position, I'd have a chance to shout from the top of my lungs how great Milwaukee is. Yes. Are there issues? Are there going to continue to be issues? Yes. But I want people to know the good and that we're trying to address the bad. So this was really a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I put in for the job, and I let Greg know that I was putting in for the job. And then we kind of didn't talk about it, because as you know, an interview process can take a pretty long time. And then they called, they started talking to me. It got more serious. I went through the top 6 interviews in person. There were 6 people. And at that point, I heard back like 2 weeks later that I had made the top 2. So I was on my way to talk to Greg. I was walking into his assistant's office when he saw me, and he's like, hey, come in here and shut the door. And I did. And he's like, so I just got invited to a cocktail meet and greet with the top 2 candidates for Visit Milwaukee, and you're one of them. Oh my goodness. You know,
it is kind of hard to keep secrets in Milwaukee.
But it was a secret. I mean, I think he understood. He wasn't part of the search committee, but it was just funny how he called me in, and before I could tell him that I was in the top 2, that I was actually in the top 2. So, you know, the Marcus family has been extremely gracious throughout this entire transition. I will always bleed Marcus blue, but now I get to represent every hospitality company, every hotel company in the city, as well as all of the wonderful restaurants and attractions and theaters and you name it. And it's extremely exciting.
So what is your advice for some of our EWL members who might be looking to make a jump, even though maybe they're happy in their current role? Like it sounds like you were very happy at Marcus. What's your advice for them? Maybe 1, if they do have a close relationship with their boss, and 2, if they don't.
Well, if they have a close relationship with their boss, I think speaking with their boss about it, there's several leaders in this community that I've spoken with who actually had the conversation with their boss before they decided to make the transition. I think that I'm very big on transparency. I think that being transparent is absolutely the way to go. If that's the type of relationship you have. If it's not, I don't know the advice to give because I've never been in the situation where I've had to keep something from my direct supervisor. I would say use your personal board of directors, which, you know, I've seen all of the EWLers. I know that you are all very close. You all have your own support system, and I would use those people to figure out how to best go about making that change the way that's best for you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, of having built our own little support group within EWL, and it's just so valuable. So I want to switch gears a little bit to the now. And, you know, you took this role October, probably even were applying maybe last summer. We were on the cusp of such an exciting year for Milwaukee to finally be able to brag about ourselves. And now we're here.
Yes, we are.
What has that process been like for you to completely have to shift gears, to be immersed in something that is just a 180 from what you ever would have imagined?
Well, let's just look back. November 18th, we were coming into what we were calling the year of Milwaukee. We were going to start the year off strong, and then our convention game was just on fire, right? We were going to start in May. We had quite a few groups throughout May. We were going to have June with a little bit of downtime, but we were going to have festivals that kept our hotels and our restaurants busy, and then we were going to go into DNC and run straight through October with back-to-back conventions. I spent the first month of my job getting to know each and every single person that worked for me. At the time, there were 50, and I spent the first 30 days having one-on-ones with every single member, whether they're full-time, part-time, or a volunteer, for a half an hour in my office, where I got to know who they were, why they loved Milwaukee, why they worked at Visit Milwaukee, which gave me great insight as to what the team looked like, and has been really beneficial in how we've started to weather this storm. So, you know, I got to work on the DNC. I became intimate with everything that was going to happen. I was having conversations with the rest of my team on how we were going to grow business in Milwaukee. We created a sports commission. We promoted someone to director of that sports commission in hopes that we could attract more sporting business here into the city. And I started making connections with our local politicians, making sure that people understood what Visit does, what a DMO does, and how we can help create economic vitality in our region and make it a better place to work, play, and visit, and live, actually. I will tell you that when word came down about coronavirus and conversations were had, I was probably on the wrong side of how we started this. I was on the news that entire week. Milwaukee is still open for business. We are making sure that all of our venues are cleaned, that we are taking all the necessary precautions. Everyone's wearing gloves, you name it. Not realizing at the time, like many of us didn't, just how serious this was. And pretty quickly, we realized how serious this was going to be and how devastating it would be for our industry. You know, Visit Milwaukee is supported through tax dollars. And we have a few other revenue streams, but the majority of our funding comes through tax dollars that are mandated through a hotel bed tax. When you see that nearly every single one of our downtown hotels has suspended their operations, you quickly realize how different life will be in the hospitality and tourism business. Our restaurants, there was just a infographic that came out from the Wisconsin Restaurant Association that shows that 40% of our restaurants have closed, and within 30 days, another 44% will close. And no one knows how many of those will open back up. When you look at revenue year over year in the month of March, last year Milwaukee County did $38 million in hotel room revenue. This year we did, I'm sorry, that's that's year to date. In the month of March, the county last year did $25 million in revenue. This year it did 12. And that's with 15 days of March still being open for business. It really just changed everything about how we operate. You know, Milwaukee is still a fantastic place. It's still one of the Midwest's coolest cities. I'm sure we're going to come out of this with a really thriving culinary scene, but we had to pivot, everybody drink, from what we were doing to becoming a resource, much like Tempo is to your membership. We have 750 members, but we also support anyone who's not a member in terms of the hospitality community, how we were going to help them figure out how to get through this.
It really is truly devastating. And, you know, to have just taken your role, I can't imagine the mindset shift you've had to go through. So how do you, or what percent do you stay focused on the here, the current news, current headlines, and then what percent would you say you're thinking about when this is all over, and or the transition period of what that looks like? How do you split your time?
I would say now it's 10% the here and 90% what we're going to do to come out of this. Obviously, I don't know when that's going to happen. That's why the 10% is still focused on the here, to listen every day at 3:30 to what Dr. Raymond says about where we are in our doubling rate and when we think we can hit phase 1 to come out of the safer at home. And then, you know, as we move forward, I focus on what we can do to help jumpstart the economy and to bring people back to work and to bring people here to visit. And, you know, if we have to open and we can't still have meetings of groups of more than 25, then how do we just focus on leisure travel if that's something that makes sense and is safe? So I would say right now it's spending a lot of time looking at what this is going to look like in the future. Of that 90%, I would say about 15% is focused on what does this organization look like moving forward? You know, what does travel look like moving forward? Those are things that I can't control, but we do need to listen to see what traveler sentiment is to figure out how to best market to those people, to make sure that when they are ready and it is safe to travel, that we're number 1 on their list to come to.
So I do want to switch gears now to a lot of questions that we got. When people registered, they could submit a question for you. 100% of those were about the DNC.
Really?
So, yeah, I guess people want to know what you think. You did have an op-ed in the Business Journal yesterday. So if you could just kind of summarize what that was and the standpoint that Visit Milwaukee is taking, I think that's of interest to people.
Of course. First and foremost, I care about the safety of the people who live and work in this city. So we're 18 weeks away from the DNC. And I think making any decisions at this point would be rash, only because I know that the leaders of this convention are speaking to the nation's experts on what this will have to look like depending on what happens. So, you know, I also selfishly, if we are able to meet in groups of larger than 50 or 250, or even if it's 250, how do we make that work? But this is the chance for the global, for the world to be looking at Milwaukee. And I don't want us to lose that chance, because Milwaukee is a great place. It is a great place to visit. we can showcase everything we have to offer. So, for us to lose that opportunity this year, it would be heartbreaking for me, but I would absolutely understand if we had to, because it wasn't safe to meet. So at this point though, I'm on regular meetings every day or every other day now. It's gone down a little bit with the DNCC and how we are approaching what it looks like in terms of guest rooms. We haven't actually started talking what the actual convention looks like at this point, because obviously we're waiting to see what guidelines, what federal and local guidelines are going to be as we get closer to the date.
Yeah, I know when we were preparing for this last week, you said, I wish I had a crystal ball or
that thing that you
shape. Yeah, it's just, everything changes daily. So we just don't know what's going to happen. We are getting a couple of questions. So I want to shift over to Caitlin. If you want to throw one out, Caitlin.
Yes,
Turn
absolutely.
on your video.
Oh, yes, I've forgotten. I didn't put on a nice shirt today for nothing. We did receive a couple questions, Peggy.
Sure.
Firstly, what has been an unexpected surprise taking on your new CE role with Visit Milwaukee?
Besides coronavirus.
Besides coronavirus, that's a good point.
I mean, I think that the biggest surprise for me was how talented the team is. And I don't mean that to sound like I didn't think they were talented before, but when you are in a situation like we are in right now, being able to have a team that can pivot so effortlessly based on the fluidity of the situation that's happening right now, it is amazing to watch. I've always been a person that, I may be the person who's out here talking in the face right now of what Visit Milwaukee is, but it's the team that has taught me everything I know. Not many people would have to talk this much, this new into their new role, and I would not be able to do that if the team wasn't so good at their jobs. So I think that has been the best part of taking this new job during this horrible time, is realizing how great the team is.
That's great. And we do have a second question too. Someone wrote in asking that they'd love to hear from you about the single most innovative business practice you've seen come out of the pandemic in the hospitality industry thus far. And perhaps how can we help mobilize the entire industry to embody the best of that practice?
It's a really good question. I've seen some pretty great innovation. You think about some of the breweries who have switched from making liquor to making hand sanitizer. You think of some of those different types of things that they weren't even asked to do. They just did it because they knew in order to stay in business, that's something that they had to do. But even the little things that don't seem so innovative, there's fine dining restaurants who you would never think would do carry out because it's not the experience you would get, yet they are trying to keep their associates employed by changing their business model and doing carry out. And those are the things that I love to highlight. I love to highlight people who are still making investments in the community. There's a hotel group that's still building a huge terrace at the Westin because they don't want growth to stop because of what's happening at this point in time. They want to make sure that the hospitality continues to grow afterwards. I am by far not an entrepreneur. So when we had our blue sky meeting, and I'm using a culture coach to help me since I started with this role in terms of how do you build a culture that you want to have. And she suggested to me that we hold a blue sky meeting. And I'm amazed by how big people can think. And sometimes it terrifies me because there's very real things that I have to tackle in the here and now. So it's not as easy for me to think that big picture, because when I look on my Zoom screen every day, twice a day with my senior staff, I know that I'm responsible, not just for them, but most of them are the breadwinners, and they are mostly female, all but one. I know that they're the breadwinners in their families, and I'm responsible to make sure that they still have those family sustaining wages. So, it leaves me, it makes me nervous to go too far on the innovative route.
Mm-hmm.
But I do love the question, and I know we have to be coming out of this because the way that people, the travel and tourism industry is wholeheartedly going to change after this.
Yeah. And actually, we received another question that feeds off of that one nicely. This member wrote that given the monumentous events that are on the bubble right now, statewide, including the DNC, Ryder Cup, playoffs, how confident are you in our digital solutioning to continue to drive awareness and consideration for Milwaukee to help reignite economic strength? And is there anything that we can do at EWL to help?
Well, yes, there is.
Great.
You've just fallen right into my trap. So we are actually launching a campaign at Visit Milwaukee called Bring It Home. And all of you work in different areas of industry, and I'm sure you all belong to organizations. And even something as small, and I don't mean small, but it's small in terms of what Visit Milwaukee typically books, can help jumpstart our economy when we come out of this. And so what that means is that if you are part of an organization, if you are in the public relations business and you belong to the Public Relations Society of America, or if you are a lawyer and you belong to the Association of Lawyers, what we feel coming out of this is that travel is going to become much more regionalized. And a lot of national conventions have canceled for the remainder of this year. And that's not just because, it's due to COVID, but right now is when they'd be marketing an October convention, and people aren't ready to pay money to go to a convention in October when they don't know if they're going to have a job, or maybe they're furloughed right now. So we think there's an opportunity for a lot of regionalism once we open. Milwaukee is within a 6-hour drive of 1/3 of the population. That gives us the unique opportunity to position ourselves coming out of this as a great destination for regional conferences. And what we want all of you to do is think about either your businesses. Does your business have a conference that typically takes place in a warm weather state? If your business is headquartered here or has a major office here, bring that business here. Help stimulate our economy, the economy in which you employ people, the economy in which where you work, where you live, where you play. That's what we want to do. That's what we want your help with, is if there's anything that can happen in the city, if it's a one hotel piece of business where you only need 50 guest rooms, call us. We'll put you in touch with the right hotel. But, that's where we can really use your help, because every time a hotel is sold out, hospitality in Milwaukee prior to this, the city of Milwaukee supported 32,000 full-time jobs. In the region, it supported 52,000 jobs. Hospitality has been the largest industry affected in terms of layoffs. They've laid off over 80% of their staff. That is what we need to do to get the economy back, is to reignite hospitality and tourism.
That's great. Thank you, Peggy.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Caitlin. I'm going to go back to some of my questions for now, and then we'll check in with you in a bit, because I see we have even some more coming in. So, Peggy, I want to turn a little bit to the personal family side of things, knowing that you are a hospitality family. Your husband is the GM of the Pfister. And tell us a little bit about how you're approaching this within your family, and about your 17-year-old niece who lives with you.
So I'm here at the office because the Pfister closed 2 weeks ago, and Tim spent a week closing it down, but now he's at home. So it's better for our marriage that one of us is at an office every day. I'm sure some of you may know my husband if you attend events at the Pfister. He's the gray-haired gentleman who's always very well dressed, peeking around. But I I miss personal interaction. If this teaches me anything, it teaches me that while it's okay to have these types of meetings and it keeps us connected for right now, it's not the way I want to be connected to people forever. So it's tough. You know, I try to get up. I try to shower every other day, which I would have never thought in my life that would be the case. I try to put on high heels once in a while. I'm going to tell you that I've worn high heels my entire life, 7 days a week for the majority of my career. And right now it does hurt a little bit having the high heels on today. And I know you can't even see it, but it made me feel like I was at work if I put them on. So, and for school, for Jocelyn, I took custody of my niece 4 years ago, and she was 12 when she moved in. She's 17 now. And this is hard. She's a junior, and for kids, it is hard. They don't understand, and their world is so different. It's hard for them to not be able to go out and be with friends, and that's hard for me. And she has good and bad days. We have a little whiteboard on our refrigerator, and typically I can tell what her mood for the day is going to be by the note she writes on the whiteboard in the morning. If it's, I hate coronavirus, I know it's going to be a bad day. If it's, I'm feeling positive today, I know it's going to be a good day. So it's really just checking in with her and making sure that she knows that I'm here. But she's also a teenager, so a lot of times she doesn't want me anywhere near her anyway. I'm sure all of you can, if you have teenagers, you can understand that.
What would be your advice for the moms out there with younger kids? I mean, it's such a range of ages and how you might approach the subject, but do you have any overall advice about family life in the time of Corona?
I think that I've learned better from my coworkers who've been doing it with their kids. The whole work-life balance was never something that affected me until 4 years ago, because I just worked all the time. My husband and I had nothing living in our house. There was no plants, there were no pets, there were no kids, there was nothing living unless it was cheese that was growing fuzz in the refrigerator. We ate out every single night. We had nothing. Thank goodness Jocelyn came to live with us 4 years ago, because there would be no way I'd be prepared for what's happening right now. But because of the way Jocelyn came to live with us, we've been very open, and there hasn't been a lot of shielding from the conversations that take place. And because what's happened to hospitality has been so devastating, she's been involved in all those conversations. I don't know that's necessarily the right way to go. I have a friend who does a corona-free weekend every single weekend, where her family and her kids don't talk anything about coronavirus, because they need to just focus on the good that's happening. So I think that's some really good advice. I think being honest with your kids is great. And then also letting them know that there is still positivity and this will end.
Yeah, you gave me the idea last week for the Corona-free weekend, and we tried it, and I think it lasted, maybe an hour. It's really, really hard.
It is.
But it definitely does feel better to, push it away for as long as it can. So I want to turn back to leading during this challenging time. And you joked with me, nothing prepared me for this.
Oh, right.
Because, we haven't been through a pandemic since 1918. But there are definitely leadership qualities that you mentioned that you're leaning on during this time. And I wondered if you could share what some of those are.
Listening, just listening to people and hearing and understanding what they're going through. Although I pride myself on loving the teams that I work with and listening to the teams that I work with, I'm not the type of leader that creates a theme day for our Zoom meetings in the morning so that everyone can relax a little bit. So tapping into my leaders who do think that way has been absolutely essential to helping everyone else get through it on our team. We had to lay off 40% of our team. And we had to make that decision pretty quickly, being a nonprofit, knowing that our revenue stream was drying up. And I called every single person myself with HR, our HR leader. I felt it was important that they hear it come from me, that they knew that this had nothing to do with them, that this was a byproduct of what was happening in the world. And, you know, although I told you on the phone that nothing prepares you for that, I did live through 2001. I did live through the recession in 2008. I know that we had to do the same thing in some of those instances, just not quite to the level that we're doing now. So leaning in on some of those skills that I learned, you know, I learned a lot of the skills to be a leader, honestly, by being the Tempo president. I went through a leadership change during the time that I was the president of Tempo, the incoming president to the presidency, and then coming out of it when my predecessor took my place. And that taught me a lot about transition and change and being able to manage to a large group of people. It was definitely, those are skill sets that I look back at when I'm having some of the conversations I'm having today.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for being so real and authentic with us. You know, there's no way to sugarcoat these things. So thank you, Peggy. We know you're an open book, but.
Yeah, and at least I'm not crying today. We did a pre-call last week, and it was right after the Safer at Home got extended, and I was just a mess.
I do want to turn things a little more positive.
Yes.
And on a more positive note, so we are getting a couple more questions that I'll throw it over to Caitlin. Go for it, Caitlin.
Great. So Peggy, you did just share with us that you had to make some very difficult decisions at Visit Milwaukee. We had one of our members write in asking what advice you have for those of us in the EWL group who may have been laid off or are going through a furlough.
You know, I think it's staying in touch with your industry, keeping up to date with your industry, reaching out to the other people who may or may not be laid off. This is a different situation than ever before. I remember when we first started having these conversations, my HR leader is pretty new to her role. And she was like, so, you know, we can't reach out to them. We can't talk to them. And I said, no, this is different. This is not where you're taking a select few number of people who may or may not be the cream of the crop in your organization. Anyone who's laid off or furloughed needs to understand that this time it's a necessity to be laid off or furloughed. There is no way that almost any industry can keep the people on that they have on. So I am taking the time to at least bi-weekly send an email to all of the furloughed, laid off associates, letting them know what's happening with Visit Milwaukee, that we miss them, that this is where we're at in terms of where we think we are financially and what it looks like for them to come back. Some may like it, some may not, but I've gotten feedback that thank you for letting us know. Thank you for keeping us involved. It makes us feel like we're still part of the team.
That's great. We have another question about what changes have resulted from this experience that you hope to take with you when we all return to whatever that new normal looks like.
Well, I think that the connectedness that we all have. I think that a lot of times we're like, oh, we're too busy. We can't meet. We can't do that. I do think that this time of reflection has allowed us to slow down and really connect more with people on a deeper level, because we're not constantly running from one place to the next. You know, there's less travel time because no one's getting in their car and commuting to work. So therefore you have that additional time to either spend with your family or to get work done so that you can have a 4:30 cocktail hour. I think that there's a lot of good that will come out of this. It's just sometimes hard to see that right now while there's such pain.
Sure. What do you want people to remember about your leadership during this crisis?
I hope that people understand that I'm as transparent as I can possibly be, that I don't pretend to have all the answers, and that I am trying, that everything I do is with the best intention, and it's with the intention of helping our community. I hope that's what people remember.
That's great. And we have another question here to lighten things up a little. They write in, have you picked up any new hobbies since the pandemic hit? And if not, what's something you enjoy doing when you do have some downtime?
Everything I enjoy doing has been banned with the I love to gamble. I love to gamble. It is my stress relief. I spend an awful lot of time at Potawatomi, and that is something I cannot do right now. One thing I picked up was I am on the road to 50 this year. So I got a personal trainer who is training me twice a week so that I can have some muscle, because I have zero muscle in my body, and the trainer is quickly realizing that I have zero muscle in my body. So that would be the one thing new that I picked up.
That's great.
We also did get a request to see your shoes.
Oh, they're not good. They're boot heels today. See, they're just boots, but they are heels.
They are heels.
That's impressive.
So kudos for that.
Oh, well, did you see? 2 weeks ago, I would not have been able to lift my leg that high. I am getting a little limber with the workouts.
That's great.
So we're going to move on to wrap up, Peggy, with the lightning round. So don't think too hard about these.
Okay.
Just whatever comes to your mind first.
Great.
So what is your favorite thing about Milwaukee?
You know what? This is lightning round. This is like asking who my favorite child is if I have more than one. I represent all of the great things in Milwaukee, so it's really hard for me to pinpoint just one. So I will give you my really quick litany. I love all of our summer festivals, whether they be at the Summerfest grounds, State Fair, or church festivals. I love the fact that we are an amazing united performing arts city. I love our culinary scene. I love everything about our venues for concerts and the performing arts. There's nothing in this city I don't love.
Lightning round, Peggy.
I know.
Lightning round.
Okay.
All right. Here's another one. Try to have one answer. Favorite restaurant in Milwaukee that's not a Marcus Hotel Group restaurant.
5 o'clock steakhouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about like for a more casual meal?
For a more casual meal, I would say it would be really casual. I lived across the street from Bel Air for 6 years, so I loved going over to Bel Air for a margarita after work and a taco.
Yeah, good answer. You already answered this one earlier. What's the first thing you want to do when this is over? Probably go to Potawatomi.
And that would also be my favorite way to decompress as well, so yes.
Are you an introvert or extrovert? I think you answered this one too.
Definitely an extrovert.
So how are you staying connected with friends, your squad, mentors?
Text, phone, conference call, or these things, whether it be GoToMeeting, Google Hangout, House Party. I've downloaded every single app on my phone. As you guys can see, I still don't have the hang of where to look because my laptop has the camera, but I like to look at everyone on the screen, so I always am looking the wrong way. The funny thing was last week, Friday, I did not shower, and as you can see, I look this way so you could see the side of my hair. Well, all I did was curl, but I never looked at the back, and I was on a call, and I went like this, and someone said, can you turn around and let me see the back of your head? And literally it looked like I had just pushed all my hair forward. Like I had some kind of party in the back of my head, and I had gone and been in the office all day. I mean, not that anyone saw me, but I looked like that all day.
Well, then I'm going to share something with you that I didn't curl the back of my hair. Like, there's no reason to.
There's not.
Just
No
the
one
front.
sees you.
Yeah. So that's a hot tip for everyone. Coffee or tea?
Coffee. 100%.
What is your dream job?
I have it right now.
What if you had to do something different? Not in hospitality. How about that?
Oh, not in hospitality. You know, literally a teacher.
Okay. And then let's wrap up with this one. What is the best advice you have ever received?
The best advice I have ever received happened yesterday from my niece, who's 17 years old. She heard me having a meltdown upstairs about something that had happened in response to something that I had done. And I was having a conversation with someone else about how I could rectify it and what I should do. And she came upstairs, and sometimes she can be very wise and very irritated. And she's like, honey, listen to me. Not everyone is going to like you in this job. Some of your decisions are going to be very difficult, but you have to do what you think is right and follow your heart. And I'm like, oh my goodness, who are you and how old are you?
Yeah.
And she was absolutely right. She was absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. So she's 17 going on
34.
Yeah. And I love that she calls you honey. That's amazing. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Peggy. I've said it before, but thank you for being authentic, real with us. You're a leader that we all admire. I'm so glad that you are leading Visit Milwaukee. I feel good having you as the top cheerleader for our city. So we are all, wishing the best for everyone in the city, and we'll take those tips.
Thank you.
With us today.
Thank you. You guys are amazing. Being someone who was the president of Tempo when the strategic plan was put out to create this group, and now to see how strong this group is with 300, I think it's 300 plus members now. Is that what you have in EWL?
We are at 209 EWL members, soon to be more.
And it is amazing the way that you have made this such an amazing group who advocate on behalf of each other and the city and our community. It's amazing to see. The vision was Jennifer Bartolotta's to create this group. And today, on the 1-year anniversary of what we consider the godfather of hospitality in our city, it was 1 year ago today that he passed away, just to see that the vision that Jennifer put forth during her presidency has come to fruition with this group of people. I wish I could see all your faces, but congratulations to you and to Jen for making this an amazing transformation for Tempo.
Thank you for being such an advocate, and something that we all aspire to be as we go forth in our careers. So thank you, Peggy. I'm sure there will be a lot of people asking for your contact info to get in touch. So you can look forward to that.
Feel free to give them my information.
Yeah.
I got a lot of time on my hands.
And all the rest of you 90 who have tuned in, thank you so much for taking time out of your days. Watch for our post-event survey. Like we said in the beginning, our committees are working really hard to keep providing value to us. And we can't wait to see you in person soon.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye, everyone.
Bye.